Sunday, but the next, our Old Fashioned Day Harvest Festival, yes. I'm looking forward to that. We got a lot of things. Is everything in good shape for that? word of caution as we do our lesson tonight. And the caution is, all of you who are sitting in this room here tonight, what I'm talking about tonight, you may hear later in a sermon. Don't tell nobody that I don't. It's a, do I? I got to take it to Brandon. Old Brandon Pinion, he used to have some words of wisdom, and one of his sayings was, if a sermon ain't worth preaching twice, it ain't worth preaching once. So I have to agree with him on that. But anyway, no, as I was preparing for tonight, I was kind of surprised myself in what happened. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a couple of minutes. And in all honesty, the reason I said what I did a minute ago is the whole bunch really needs to hear some of the things we're going to talk about. In Matthew chapter 6, let's go to verse 22. And when I first read this, it's like I always have all my life. You know, you read something that you've read over and over and over again, and even from time to time may have, as I've done, you know, studied the Bible and studied. I had in college had New Testament survey and so forth, and I well remember the teachings on the Sermon on the Mount was, you know, a big deal when we got to. So I'm sure I've studied that, but I had never really seen it quite like I saw it this time. So let's dig in and see what God's got for us tonight. In chapter 6 of Matthew, verse 22, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. He cannot serve God and mammon. What is mammon? What does that word mean? How much? Money. That's right, money. Why in the world did that come in here? Because we see this like a sandwich, right in the middle between two things that Jesus was to say. And he kind of laid it in there between laying up your treasures on earth, not laying up your treasures on earth, but laying them up in heaven. And so then now here he says in verse 24, no man can serve two masters. Yet right in the middle, he's saying, talking about your eyes. So as I begin to dig in, you know me, I like to do word studies and so forth. And so Jesus was talking about last week when we talked in verses 19 and following, he was talking about the condition of our soul. He was talking about how we lay up treasures on earth. And you know, like I do, folks, there ain't no way we can get around the truth being that our world, our society that we live in, and it's really worldwide, but or at least in the society we live in America and know, it has never been as materialistic minded as it is now. People are lusting after money and stuff and things. They judge everything by how much you got or how much you ain't got. Everybody thinks success is only measured by whether or not you make a lot of money or you own a lot of property or whatever the case might be. And so we've never seen a time, or I haven't, and I don't think America or anywhere else really ever has. And Jesus told us last week when we talked, he said, don't do that. Don't let the treasures of earth tie you down. Don't let that become your attention. The condition of your soul ought to be such that the treasures of earth don't become your God. Your God ought to be, of course, our Lord God Almighty, because last week we said, Jesus said, for where your heart is, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And what he's saying is that if you focus on money, then it literally takes you over. It just grabs you. There's never enough. There's never enough stuff to satisfy you. So when we started last week and we talked about that, and then tonight we come to what kind of looks like, well, okay, my eyes, what do my eyes do? Well, my eyes see stuff and they look around and so forth. And he says, if your eyes, the light of your body is your eye. And then he says, if your eye is single, your whole body, that means if your eyes be clear, all right? You know, I had cataract surgery here a few years ago, and man alive, I was amazed when they got them cataracts off my eyes, I thought, wow, I can see. And what I could see was just, it blew my mind. It was amazing what I could now see. And so if your eyes are clear, if you've got all the mess, the junk out of the way, and then you can really see the world for what it is. You can really see God for what he is. And so we talked about that, and it's easy, follow me, it's easy to talk about the world. You know, oh boy, I get up here, I've thought a lot of times, yeah, buddy, here's an easy target for me, man. Everybody lay me up the road and one side down the other. This whole world going to hell in a handbasket. Everybody's just after money, and sex in this world. Just going, oh, the old devil just taking this world. Oh, boy, well, amen. You know what? It's happening in the church just like it is in the world. Are you ready? All right, I told you we're going to talk about some stuff tonight, so I want you to go with me. And we're going to do it in a favorable way because I honestly feel like I have never seen, and please don't take me the wrong way because I want to brag on you a little bit because you deserve it. Maybe we need a little encouragement of it, but I've never seen a more generous church in my life. I never have. Most churches, if they got any money, they don't want to turn loose of it. They just want to hang in it. Materialistic philosophy has invaded churches, has just took over. And I started to say I wish David was here, but I don't want to draw attention to that. But she and I have talked about this so many times. This church, the more we do, the more we give, the more God gives back. It's amazing. It's amazing. I know I've said this, people, you say you can't get out and give God. It works in the church just like it does in your personal life. God loves a cheerful giver. And that applies to individuals, it applies to churches, it applies to family. Money-hungry people have invaded the churches, and they'll almost do anything in the world for a buck. It's easy. I could rab back now, man. I could get on them old TV evangelists, man. I could give them fits, couldn't I? We'd all say, yeah. But you know what? It's happening. It's happening in Baptist churches and other churches. It is grabbing on to stuff, grabbing on to money, whatever we can get our hands on. We need to hold ourselves, okay? What God is saying here, we need to hold ourselves and we need to hold our church up in front of the mirror and look at it. I remember telling a guy one day, he was talking about his church, and we had talked several times about he was wanting to pull out and all that stuff. And I told him, I said, here, he said, I've gone to that church the last day I can stand it, I ain't going no more. I said, whoa. I want you to go one more Sunday. And I want you to walk into that church, pretend like you're a visitor. Pretend like you've never been there before. And then see the church as a visitor would see the church. Don't think about any of the other stuff that's happened, nothing else. And then see how you feel. And then, if you feel like you got to go. But if you can walk in there like a visitor and just say, look, I'm going to give a clean slate. I'm going to start all over. He did. It didn't work out for him to stay, but at least he was able to see differently. A lot of the stuff that had gone on, he put it aside. Our churches have also lost sight in a lot of ways of what God has founded the church for. Money is easy to become your master. Money is a wonderful servant, but it's a horrible master. And if you in yourself, your life, your personal life, in your family, or especially in the church, if you let money become your God, what does God say? You can't serve God and mammon both. Mammon is money. You can't serve God and money both. It don't work. Money will demand your time. Money will demand your attention. Money will demand your love. Money will demand that you pay attention to it. And so will God. God deserves it. Money don't. But once you get that gold fever, once you get that desire for money and more money and accumulating money, it's an appetite that's never satisfied. With God, it's different. We need to have that kind of hunger for God. We need to have that desire for the Lord, for serving God. The eye, he says, is the lamp of the body. In other words, he's just told us last week when he says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now he's telling us how you see the world. Now get this, because I had never really seen this verse this way before. But where your heart is, where your desire is, there's your heart going to be there. And now he's saying what your eye focuses on is going to be what your heart is desiring to see. And if it's anything other than God, and in this case he's talking about money, but if it's anything other than God, your sight of the world is totally skewed. Let me show you what I'm talking about. What is the number one, above everything else, reason for the church to ever be established to begin with? It's the same thing as Jesus said, for he came into this world to seek and to what? That's it. Jesus came for that. He established the church for that. And when anything else begins to occupy your heart, it begins to occupy your eyesight. And then you begin to look and say, boy, we need to reach out to that family over yonder. Man, I bet they'd be good tithers. Huh? Oh, I bet we need to get them in here. We need to get them in leadership. We need to get them, man, they'd be good ones to get in. Say what? The apostle that everybody thought would be the greatest apostle was who? Yeah, Judas. Why? Oh, Judas come from a rich family. He come from a rich family. He come from a well-to-do, high-up, mucky-to-muck family that had authority and power. Jesus called him in as an apostle, yes. But he didn't call him for that reason. The rest of them didn't know why, but man, he was great. No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. Jesus said from the very beginning he was a devil. Jesus knew that? Yeah, he did. He called him anyway because Jesus knew it was in God's plan. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad to try to get folks in who have power and authority and money and so forth. I'm not saying that at all. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what I'm saying is that we need to see the world as one, a soul that needs to be reached for Jesus Christ. We need to see everyone, no matter what status they hold, no matter how much money they got, no matter what position they are or how much power or authority they've got. We've got the only authority that there is, that is eternal, and that is God himself. The idea is so beautiful, but it's also so simple. Here we are, look at it rightly. All right, I want you to see it properly. What Jesus is telling us in his sermon. He's saying, church, you Christian, me Christian, we together, the family of God, the church of God, we need to see with clear eyes the world around us. We need to desire to reach people for Christ, no matter what they've got or what they don't have. If the window is smutty with the desires for money or the desires for stuff or materialism or something else, then we tend to start to try to screen. And we start to try to turn people away because we don't want them in here. You better want them in here. If they're lost, here's the place to be. If they're sin sick, this is the hospital they need to come to. This is the intensive care room they need to be a part of. They need to come in and learn and see. And they need to learn from us. What we do as a church, what you do as an individual, depends on the condition of the heart and how clean your eyes are. Think about Christmas time. I think about Christmas as two colors, red and green. I know there's a lot of other colors that comes into Christmas time, but those are my two favorites. But imagine Christmas if it were just bland. No reds, no greens, just lights. It wouldn't be quite as much fun, would it? That's what color blindness does to people, okay? And that's what money blindness does to other folks. They don't see the beauty in what God is calling us to look out into the world and say, come, come. Jesus said, if your eye is blind, how dark is the inside? If the windows are black, How dark, because you cannot see what's on the other side. Jesus has given us a lesson that says the soul, the spiritual soul, depends on the condition of the heart, of the eye, of the desire of the individual, of the desire of the heart. The meaning goes so deeply. But I want to show you something that I learned because I dug a little deeper. Sometimes we need to do that. Get in your Bible and look up that word. What is Jesus saying? The light of the body is the eye. And then he goes on to say, but if thine eye be evil, if thine eye be evil. Do you know, I have always thought that just, we're talking about lust. If I'm looking at pretty women and I'm desiring them and I'm desiring sinful stuff that maybe I used to do or I want to go back to, and I have lust for things that are not right. Jesus is, well, you can include that if you want to, but what Jesus is really talking about kind of turned my head, because the word here that Jesus talks about, that word clear, where he put the word clear in there, he said, if thine eye be single or if thy eye be clear, that word he used there literally means generous. Generous? Yeah. He's talking about that. He's been talking about it the whole time. He's talking about laying not up treasures on earth, but do it in heaven. And then he goes on to talk about you can't serve God and mammon at the same time. What's Jesus doing? He's talking about money. And so when I looked that word up, it was like, click, hey, wait a minute. Jesus is still talking about money. He's still saying the condition of your heart, the desire of your heart. If the word bad that was used here literally means selfish, ungenerous, selfish, stingy, not wanting to share. The Greek word clear literally means, from the Old Testament to the New, over in Proverbs, the Bible says a generous man will prosper. Same word was used. The same word was used. A generous man will prosper. That's Proverbs 11:25, in case you want to read it sometime. The truth is, Jesus is trying to give us a lesson in our condition of our heart. A generous man, he says, will prosper. Now, he doesn't mean if you give $10, God's going to give you 100. Don't get that mess in your head, because that ain't nothing but a lie from hell, and that's a way for Satan to deceive you. He means when we prosper, we got to have clear eyes. Prosperity is not judged by or conditional on how much money we make or how much money we got. That's what Jesus is saying. The bad eye or the evil eye literally means a stingy eye, a selfish eye. If you're seeing the world through selfish eyes, if you're seeing the world through ungenerous eyes, Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 9, I think I put that on the list, guys. Deuteronomy chapter, come on, Mike, I got it. 15, huh? 15:9. All right, throw it up there. Deuteronomy 15:9. He gives us another one that I really like, because in there he says, beware. Now, what is he saying? This is Old Testament now. This is God speaking in the Old Hebrew. Beware that there be not a thought in your wicked heart, saying, the seventh year, the year of release is at hand. That was the year of what they call the year of Jubilee, is at hand, and thine eye be evil against thy poor brother, and thou givest him naught, and he cry to the Lord against thee, and it be sin unto thee. Ooh, what is God talking about? In that year of release, the year of Jubilee, in those days, it was the law that you had, every 7 years, you had to release a man of what he owed you. How would y'all like to have that today? For me, that'd be great, because I owe a whole lot more people than ever have owed me. But my point is that the word that God uses, if your eye be evil, see, the same identical word was used when Jesus said, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is evil, if your eye is selfish, if your eye is gluttonous, if your eye is something that is ungenerous, goes right along with do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, doesn't it? Lay them up in heaven. How do we lay them up in heaven? We're going to talk about it in a minute. Jesus told a story about the rich man who had a poor man laying at his gate begging for food. You remember Lazarus? You remember Lazarus and the story of the rich man? And Jesus talked about that stingy, spirited rich man who had no idea, didn't desire to help old poor Lazarus. Just wanted, all Lazarus wanted was crumbs from the man's table. Oh, no, no, no. The man would rather give them to the dogs than he had to give them to a poor man begging. But guess what? You remember what happened when the rich man died and Lazarus died, both about the same time. What happened? Jesus said the rich man begged for relief from the torment. Now which one's suffering? What happened? Materialism shuts out the light of Christ. Are you with me? That's what Jesus is talking about. If you are stingy, selfish, ungenerous, if you're not willing to help folks, guess what happens? Christ cannot get through to you in the way he wants to. He cannot use you the way he wants to. I'm saying this to us as a church. I'm saying it to you as an individual and me as an individual. You see, the effects of an ungenerous spirit, that's the word I'm looking, is a far greater sin than any of us have ever probably really realized. And when I began to read that, it was like cold chills went up and down my spine. Because in our world today, we have become so dependent upon stuff and things and desire for things. Larry told me a story the other day about a guy who, he and his wife, the only bridge going to their house washed out up in the mountains. If I get it wrong, holler. The bridge washed out. The old man and his wife. They finally got to him the other day. Took a while. They finally got up there to where they were. The old man and his wife sitting on the porch. Hey, sir, we're going to get this bridge built back now. We're going to get you a bridge where you can get out of here and you can go get stuff and all. Old man said, don't worry about that bridge. That's all right. We enjoying it. We back like we were 50 years ago when we first got here. We liking that. Come back at the end of December, we might need a little kerosene. You know, I ain't saying you got to live like that. Don't, please get me wrong. But I'm just saying that kind of spirit, I don't need stuff. I don't need stuff. The woman opened the cabinet, and there's a big old cabinet full of canned stuff. I mean, we all right. Don't worry about us. We're fine. There was a story about an old unhappy king. He was so unhappy. He couldn't get happy. He couldn't smile, never laughed, never had a good time. And he wanted to be happy so bad, he called in his greatest intellectuals of the kingdom and said, I want to be happy. Go out here and find out. What's it going to take to make me happy? Old Chuck's fixing to fall in on this one real good. If y'all want to look at him, you'll see what he just done. The king said, go out there and find something to make me happy. So they did. They researched all over. They finally found one happy old boy out there. And they decided, this is it. This is it. The one thing it's going to take to make the king happy is if we can find a happy man and put that happy man's shirt on the king, then that'll make the king happy. He'll be happy. You know what? They finally found that happy man. Problem was the man didn't own a shirt. You see, the truth is we are so sold. We have been so indoctrinated by TV land to believe that we can't live without this stuff, that we can't be somebody unless we got a bank full of money. Materialism, it clouds the window of our eyes and we can't see. It messes up our vision of success. So what do? We mess up our kids' vision of success. Yeah, the kid wants to grow up and dig ditches. That's what he really likes, what he wants to do. Oh, you can't make no money doing that. You got to be a lawyer. Come on, man. I'd rather him do the ditch digging any day. But the problem is that when we put our measure of success into stuff, and we think we can't live without all this stuff, then we doom ourselves to never really being happy. Never really being happy. Now, the other side of the coin, rather quickly, we tend to judge other people by the same measurement. If they ain't got a bunch of money, we don't want nothing to do with them. We don't want them to be our friend. Oh, shoot, no, I want to be sitting around that guy. Come on. We don't have a healthy vision for who our friends are. We don't have a healthy vision for who we are. We don't see ourselves. What did Jesus grow up as? A carpenter. Now, to us, y'all know contractors and carpenters that make a lot of money. Most of them are, just regular guys that work hard, build cabinets, whatever, but they make a lot of money, folks. Let me tell you, y'all just don't know. I mean, I've seen them trucks coming up the road. Some of them got, these boys, old Randy Peace, he got bales of hay. Old Larry coming up through there with bales of money. But, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, but that's about prosperity gospel right there. You got it. No, what we do is we tend to, a mechanic. Or a buckanic. Like Papa. I love it. I love it. See, we want to tell our kids they got to be a doctor. They got to be this, or they got to make a lot of money if they're going to be successful. Have we not ever looked at our Lord? A carpenter in Jesus' day, he didn't make a lot of money. Joseph was a poor guy. He wasn't in poverty. Don't get me wrong. God took care of him, but I'm just saying, we got to look within ourselves and see what is the condition of our eyes. What is the condition of our eyes? Because the condition of our eyes is strictly dependent upon the condition of our heart. And how we see the world is distorted if we let money and wealth and all of that. Life, materialistic thinking. It's like, any of you ever eat Chinese? Anybody here eat Chinese? Y'all like Chinese? Oh, boy, you go to them Chinese restaurants, okay, and they got all these buffets. You go there and you just eat and eat and eat till you feel like you're going to bust. What happens 2 hours later? You're starving to death. You're hungry again. Chinese stuff don't fill you up. It'll fill you up, but you're bloated. Huh? That's just, 2 hours later, you're starving to death again. That's the way it is. If we put our worth, our value, other people's value, if we judge them by money, by wealth. I thought a lot about this as I was finishing up on what I was going to say. I really believe that the motivation behind our forefathers many years ago, the reason slavery ever came into America to begin with, was because of that kind of materialistic thinking. Even in those days, it was a way to get free labor, or say almost free, to treat people like animals instead of human beings, saying they didn't have souls in order they could somehow get rich off of their labor. I had an uncle, Uncle Amos Lee Carpenter, was Pop's brother. But Uncle Amos Lee said, you'll never get rich on your own labor. You got to get rich on somebody else's labor. Well, that's generally what people who have money think. And they see people that way. They see people and they're in darkness and don't even know it. That's what the world is. What is Jesus talking about when he says that kind of darkness? When he says, if the light that's in you is darkness, then how great is that darkness? What's Jesus saying? Jesus saying self-deception. When you allow Satan to deceive you into thinking that your value is in money or stuff or things, then he says that's the darkest kind of blindness there is. In America today, we suffer tremendously from that disease. Now, you ain't got to be rich to have that disease. Are you ready? You ain't got to be rich to have that disease. I know folks as poor as Job's turkey ain't hardly got nothing, but they love money. Their focus is on wanting more of it, and especially free money. Do you know why our government is already bankrupt and just hadn't realized it yet? It's because people just gimme. Give me. I don't want to take care of myself. You just give me money. I want money. I want it free. Greed becomes God rather than Christ. Now that's the dark side. I'm going to quickly do the bright side and then I'm done. Jesus then says, if your eye is healthy, and the word he uses there for healthy is the word for generous. And I loved it when I found that, because when I got to looking at it and I said, wow, it says if your eye be evil, your whole body is full of darkness. But he says if your eye be single, the word he used there literally means if your eye be generous, if your eye be clear, if your eye be seeing rightly, properly. Jesus talks about a city set on a hill can't be hidden. Jesus talking about people who have clear eyesight, who can see out yonder, who can see, hey, there's somebody over yonder that is in need. There's somebody over yonder who's hurting, and they need help. We need to help them. I need to help them. I need to do what I can. Scripture's open before us time after time after time by the instructions of Jesus Christ that here's what we need to do. We need to help others. It's a joy to help others. It's a great reward from God when we help others. I know I'm preaching to the choir because anytime I've ever said anything about we need to help somebody, I never get a negative look or a negative thought. I always get, and I thank you for that, and I brag on you for that only because I'm not giving you glory. I'm giving glory to the God you serve. Keep that eye clear. Keep it clear. Keep it focused. Keep it right looking. Keep it seeing the right thing. A person with a generous spirit is a person, I like to say, they hold life with a loose hand. It's not that we waste it and just throw it away. Our church has never done that. I don't think any of you have ever done that. I can't afford to do that. But we can give as we can give, when we can give, what we can give. And we help people who need help, regardless of what it is. Regardless. Now, we try so hard, your deacons and I, and you, when I call on you, your trustees, we try our dead level best to be good stewards of God's money in your church. We try to be so careful to make sure that we're not being boonswoggled, but if we are, we'll err on the side of getting took rather than erring on the side of not helping somebody who's hurting. An old general had led his troops through a horrible battle. It had been a terrible, terrible, terrible battle. And the troops were wore out, they were give out, they were hurting, they had been wounded. And the old general sat down on a stump and he thought, man. He reached in his pocket and he had one cigar left. The old general loved cigars. He had one cigar left. It was one of them good ones too, man, one of them. He thought, this is it. Finally, the battle's over. We've been victorious. He sat down on the stump, pulled out his cigar, and when he did, he saw this old wounded soldier sitting on a stump next to him, crying in pain and bleeding and suffering. And he knew, he could tell by the look in that soldier's eyes that cigar looked good to him too. The old general struck a match and lit that cigar and handed it to that soldier and watched as that soldier just smoked that cigar and enjoyed it so good he almost forgot the pain he was in. One of the soldiers came over there and said, General, old Jim over there smoking your cigar. The old general looked at him and said, yeah, buddy. And that's the best cigar I ever had. Best cigar I ever had. You know, the truth is, the best meals, the best coats, the best beds, the best hands are those hands that we help. Those times when we help folks. Money, I've told you it over and over again. As long as I'm your pastor, never forget it. Money is a tool just like any other tool God gives us. It's a tool to help folks. It's a tool, yes, to take care of God's church, God's building, God's needs, but it's a tool to reach people for Jesus. And it's hard to reach a soul for Christ when he's starving to death and you won't give him a biscuit. You know, money should never be used to try to buy friends. Money ought to be used to build friendships. Money ought to be used to win souls. The question of right or wrong that Jesus is talking about in our lesson tonight is what we do, how we look at our desire we have towards money. We can either use it to try to get joy for ourselves, which is futile, useless. If I had $1 million, if I had $10 million, if I had $1 billion tonight, it would not buy me one more second of life. It wouldn't buy me one more heartbeat. And it never would buy me 1 second of pure happiness. But to see somebody helped, to see somebody being able to get up out of the ditch, feed their family, being able to raise their head up and know there's hope because of something we've done, I've done. To me, money can't buy that. But I tell you what it can do. It can show me the best way I could ever use it. It can be the best way. What we do with money, Jesus said the amount you have is not the determining factor of what you are, who you are. It's what you do with what you do have. So Jesus winds it up. We can't serve God and money. Well, so true it is. Worldly stuff, materialism, demands our time, our attention, our love, our desire. So does God. God has a right to it. God has a right to it. Deuteronomy tells us that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your might. You must love God that way. And you cannot do it if you're loving money, especially anywhere equal. Got one more little story I wanted to share with you. I got it jotted down here. The story of an old farmer. Old farmer went out one day. Too many of us were like this old farmer. He went out one day, and his best cow, boy, she was a fine one. She was a good one. His best cow had just had twins. He come running in the house, tickled to death, jumping up and down, excited. Mama, old Bessie, best cow, she done had twins. She's had a red one and a white one, and they both look so good. They're healthy. They look fine. So he said, you know God's been so good to us. He said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dedicate one of them calves to the Lord and one of them to us. And we're going to raise them calves up. We're going to take care of both of them just alike. We're going to do all we can to make fine calves out of them, raise them up. And then when we sell them, one of them, everything out of that's going to help the Lord and help folks. The other one's going to be for us. Woman says, hubby, you're great. I'm so proud of you. He said, that's great. She said, a red and a white. That's right. She said, which one's God's and which one's yours? Oh, it don't matter. We're just going to let them grow up, and then we'll see when the time comes. When we sell them, we'll see. We'll see. But it's fine. They just alike. Man, they're identical twins. It'll be fine. But guess what? A few days later, he come back in. His old face was sad. His head drug down. What's the matter, baby? His wife said. And he said, honey, God's calf died. She said, how'd you know it was God's calf? I said, well, I had just decided a few minutes before God was going to get the red one, and that's the one that died. We too much like that. Honestly, we are. And I know it's a funny story, but we need to treat our money, all our money, like it's God's first. And then we need to take care of our needs, certainly. That's why God gives it to us. But the question is not how much you got. The question is not, how much you make, all this stuff. The question is, where's your heart? Where's your heart? Because your eyes are going to see the world the way your heart feels about money and stuff. So I guess Jesus is just giving us that age-old question. Who are you going to serve? God or money? Any questions? All right. Well, let's all stand then. And I did not know that lesson would come about so close to our fundraiser. Isn't it amazing how God does that? How God puts it together. Months ago, how God gives us reminders, helps us to see. All right, Chuck, lead us in prayer.
Bless the ones on the prayer list, Lord, just lift them up to you for your name. Lord, bless the children, the leaders next door, Lord, that you will bless them and watch over them.
Yes, Lord.